I remember standing in a Hollywood casting office. The producer looked me up and down and said, "You're talented, but America is not ready for a Chinese lead." He said it casually, like it was simply a fact of nature. I felt something move inside me. Not anger, something quieter and more dangerous. Clarity. I had two choices: shrink into the box they built for me, or burn it entirely. I burned it. No person on this earth has the right to define the ceiling of another human being. What I learned from that moment became 7 principles that made me completely uncontrollable. No system could cage me. No rejection could define me. No person could tell me who I was allowed to become. These are not motivational words. These are the principles I lived by. Today, every single one of them belongs to you. 1. The water principle: have no form, and no one can grip you. When I speak about becoming like water, I am not trying to sound philosophical or poetic. I am talking about a very practical way of living that protects your freedom. Water does not argue with reality. It does not complain about the shape of the container it enters. It simply adjusts, flows, and continues moving forward. Because it has no fixed form, it cannot be held or controlled for long. This is why water can quietly pass through narrow spaces, yet over time it can also break the hardest rock. In my early fighting days, I carefully observed my opponents. I noticed that the ones who followed strict patterns were the easiest to defeat. Their movements were predictable. Once I understood how they reacted under pressure, I could guide the entire fight without them realizing it. Life outside the ring works in the same way. When your behavior, emotions, and decisions follow the same patterns again and again, people begin to understand how to influence you. They know which words will trigger your anger, which situations will make you insecure, and which rewards will make you obey. But when you become fluid, you remove this control. Being fluid does not mean being weak or confused. It means being aware enough to change your response according to the moment. Sometimes strength is needed. Sometimes patience. Sometimes silence. Sometimes action. A person who can adjust like this becomes very difficult to manipulate because others cannot predict how he will respond. Do not trap yourself inside one identity or one way of thinking. You are not required to react the same way you did yesterday. You are not required to live according to other people's expectations. Learn to shift your strategy, your mindset, and even your perspective when necessary. Real freedom begins when you stop being rigid and start moving through life with intelligence and flow, just like water. 2. The empty cup. You cannot receive what you're already full of. Many people believe that becoming stronger means collecting more knowledge, more opinions, and more certainty. But real growth often begins in the opposite way, by learning to empty your mind. Imagine trying to pour fresh tea into a cup that is already full. No matter how valuable the tea is, it will simply spill over and be wasted. In the same way, when your mind is crowded with ego, assumptions, and the belief that you already know everything, you leave no space for new understanding to enter. In my journey through different martial arts, I met many practitioners who were deeply loyal to their styles. Their dedication was admirable, but their attachment made them rigid. They refused to explore new ideas because they feared it would challenge their identity. This limited their progress. I realized that if I wanted to grow, I had to remain open, willing to question what I had learned, and ready to replace it if something more effective appeared. An empty cup does not mean an empty life. It means a flexible mind. It means being humble enough to admit that there is always more to discover. When you let go of the need to always be right, you begin to see opportunities others miss. You become teachable, adaptable, and continuously evolving. People who think they know everything are easy to control because their thinking is fixed. But the person who stays curious and receptive cannot be confined. Keep your mind clear of unnecessary noise. Stay open to learning, and you will continue to move forward while others remain stuck. 3. Absorb what is useful. Stop belonging to other people's systems. From the very beginning of my journey, I understood something that many people realize too late in life. Systems are created to guide you, but if you are not careful, they begin to define you. Martial arts schools, cultural traditions, social expectations, professional paths, all of these can offer structure and knowledge. But the moment you surrender your individuality to them completely, you stop growing. You stop thinking for yourself. You start living according to borrowed rules instead of discovering your own truth. When I studied different fighting styles, I respected every teacher and every method. But I refused to become a prisoner of any single approach. I noticed that many fighters defended their styles with emotion instead of logic. They repeated techniques not because they worked, but because they had always been taught that way. This blind loyalty made them predictable and limited. I realized that true mastery was not about choosing one system and rejecting all others. True mastery was about observation, experimentation, and personal evolution. To absorb what is useful means to look at everything with a clear and practical mind. It means you take the strength, wisdom, or strategy that helps you grow, and you leave behind what weakens or restricts you. This requires courage, because society often rewards conformity. People feel safe when you think like them, behave like them, and follow the same path. But safety is not the same as freedom. When you belong completely to other people's systems, you begin to depend on their approval. Your decisions become influenced by fear of rejection rather than guided by inner clarity. In life, this principle applies far beyond martial arts. It applies to your career, your relationships, even your beliefs. You may have learned certain habits from family, school, or environment that once helped you survive. But survival is not the same as living fully. As you grow, you must question what still serves your purpose and what silently holds you back. If you continue to carry outdated patterns simply because they are familiar, you limit your potential. Absorbing what is useful also means developing the confidence to create your own way. This is not arrogance, it is responsibility. It is the understanding that no one else can design the exact path meant for you. When you combine knowledge from different sources and refine it through personal experience, you build something authentic. You become flexible, creative, and difficult to control because you are no longer operating on borrowed instructions. The world will always try to categorize you. It will try to label you, assign you roles, and place you inside predictable boundaries. But when you practice this principle deeply, you learn to move beyond labels. You remain respectful of systems without being owned by them. You continue learning without losing your independence. And most importantly, you begin to trust your own perception. Remember this clearly. The moment you stop belonging blindly and start thinking consciously, you take back your power. You become a person who cannot be easily manipulated because your choices are guided by awareness, not by pressure. Absorb what strengthens you. Discard what limits you. Add what is uniquely yours. This is how real freedom is built. 4. The principle of knowing yourself. Your opponent knows you better than you do. One of the greatest illusions in life is believing that you understand yourself simply because you live inside your own mind. Many people move through the world convinced they know who they are, what they want, and how they will react under pressure. But when real challenges appear, fear, failure, rejection, humiliation, they suddenly discover sides of themselves they never expected. This lack of self-awareness is not just uncomfortable, it is dangerous. Because the moment you do not understand your own nature, someone else will study it for you and use it. In combat, I learned that victory does not begin with the first strike. It begins with deep observation. While many fighters focused entirely on their opponent's techniques, I spent equal time understanding my own strengths and weaknesses. I paid attention to how my breathing changed under stress, how my timing shifted when I became impatient, and how my movements tightened when fear entered my mind. This honest self-study allowed me to correct myself before an opponent could exploit those openings. If I did not recognize my blind spots, my opponent surely would. Life works in the same way. Every human being has emotional triggers, insecurities that make them react impulsively, desires that make them compromise their values, fears that make them surrender their independence. When you are unaware of these inner patterns, you become easy to control. A clever person does not need physical force to influence you. They simply learn what makes you angry, what makes you feel important, what makes you afraid of losing approval. Then they guide your behavior quietly, almost invisibly. Knowing yourself requires more than positive thinking or motivational slogans. It requires brutal honesty. You must be willing to observe your own reactions without excuses. Ask yourself difficult questions. Why do certain comments disturb you so deeply? Why do you seek validation in specific situations? Why do you hesitate when opportunity appears? These questions are not meant to weaken you, they are meant to wake you up. Self-knowledge is a mirror that reveals both your power and your limitations. During my training, I often pushed myself into uncomfortable situations on purpose. I sparred with stronger opponents. I practiced under fatigue. I tested my patience in moments of frustration. These experiences were not only physical challenges, they were psychological lessons. They showed me how my mind behaved when comfort disappeared. The more I understood my natural tendencies, the more I could refine them. Gradually, fear lost its grip. Doubt became easier to manage. My responses became intentional rather than automatic. There is also another important dimension to knowing yourself, understanding your purpose. Many people drift through life reacting to circumstances because they have never clarified what truly matters to them. Without clear values, they become vulnerable to external pressure. They change direction depending on who influences them the most. But when you define your principles and priorities clearly, your decisions gain stability. Even in uncertainty, you remain grounded. Self-knowledge does not mean becoming rigid or self-critical. It means becoming aware and adaptable. You learn to accept your weaknesses without shame, and then you work to transform them. You recognize your strengths without arrogance, and then you use them wisely. Over time, this awareness creates confidence, not the loud confidence that seeks attention, but the quiet confidence that comes from understanding your own nature. Remember this, an opponent can only control you if you remain a mystery to yourself. The moment you begin to study your inner world with sincerity, you remove the leverage others depend on. Your emotions become clearer, your decisions become sharper, your presence becomes more stable. And when you truly know who you are, manipulation loses its power. So do not spend your entire life analyzing the world while ignoring your own mind. Turn inward, observe, reflect, refine, because the greatest victory is not defeating others, it is mastering yourself. 5. The principle of honest expression performance is a leash. Many people spend their entire lives performing. They perform to be liked. They perform to be accepted. They perform to avoid conflict. Without realizing it, they slowly replace their true personality with a version designed to satisfy others. This may bring temporary comfort, but it quietly destroys inner freedom. The moment you start living as a performer, you hand over control of your life to the audience around you. In my journey, I noticed that some martial artists were obsessed with appearance. They focused on looking impressive rather than being effective. Their movements were beautiful, but empty. Their techniques were designed to gain applause, not to win a real fight. I understood early that performance is a dangerous trap. When your goal becomes pleasing others, you stop listening to your own instincts. You begin to hide your weaknesses instead of improving them. You start copying what is popular instead of discovering what is authentic. Honest expression is different. Honest expression is when your actions come from genuine understanding, not from fear of judgment. When I moved, I did not think about how I looked. I thought about what was real in that moment. If a simple movement worked, I used it. If a traditional technique failed, I abandoned it. This honesty allowed me to grow rapidly because I was not protecting an image, I was protecting my progress. In everyday life, performance appears in subtle ways. You may agree with opinions you do not believe in just to avoid tension. You may pretend to be confident when you feel lost, or pretend to be calm when you are deeply disturbed. Over time, this constant acting creates exhaustion. You feel disconnected from yourself because you are always adjusting your behavior according to who is watching. And when people notice that you depend on their approval, they gain influence over your choices. A person who expresses themselves honestly becomes harder to control. This does not mean being rude or reckless. It means being sincere. It means speaking when something truly matters and remaining silent when words are unnecessary. It means making decisions based on inner clarity rather than external pressure. Honest expression builds self-respect because you are no longer betraying your own truth for convenience. During my training, I often faced criticism for doing things differently. Some people misunderstood my methods. Some doubted my intentions. But I accepted this discomfort because I knew that pretending to be someone else would cost me far more. Real growth requires authenticity. When you stop acting for approval and start acting from understanding, your energy becomes focused, your mind becomes lighter, your direction becomes clearer. There is also great power in vulnerability. Honest expression allows you to admit when you do not know something, when you are struggling, or when you need to change. This openness is not weakness. It is strength, because it keeps you real. People may judge you, but they cannot easily manipulate you. You are no longer hiding behind a mask that can be used against you. Remember this clearly. Performance may attract attention, but authenticity creates freedom. The more you align your words, actions, and intentions, the more stable you become. Others may try to influence you, but their control will fade because you are no longer living for their reactions. You are living from your own awareness. So stop acting, stop pretending, stop shaping your life around imagined expectations. Express yourself honestly, refine yourself continuously, and allow your true nature to guide your path. This is how you remove the leash and reclaim your power. 6. The principle of focused effort. Scattered men are always controlled. In my journey, I came to understand a powerful truth that many people ignore until it is too late. Talent alone does not create mastery. Intelligence alone does not create freedom. What truly determines the direction of your life is the ability to focus your effort with consistency and intention. I have seen strong bodies fail and sharp minds collapse simply because their energy was spread in too many directions. A person who chases everything at once eventually becomes controlled by anything that demands their attention. When I trained, I did not merely repeat movements. I practiced with total presence. Every strike had purpose. Every step had awareness. I learned to treat each training session as an opportunity to refine not just my technique, but also my concentration. I noticed that when my mind wandered, my movements lost precision. When my attention was divided, my timing became unreliable. This taught me that focus is not a luxury, it is a weapon. A focused mind cuts through confusion and hesitation. A distracted mind creates openings for failure. Look at modern life. Distraction is everywhere. Your attention is constantly pulled by noise, endless opinions, digital stimulation, comparison, fear of missing out, and the pressure to react instantly. Many people believe they are being productive because they are busy. But busyness is not the same as progress. You can move all day and still remain in the same place if your effort lacks direction. When your mind jumps from one goal to another, you weaken your ability to complete anything meaningful. This creates dependency. You begin to rely on trends, on approval, on instructions from others because you have not built inner clarity. Focused effort means making conscious choices about where your energy goes. It requires discipline to say no to unnecessary distractions, no to habits that drain you, no to opportunities that do not align with your purpose. Many people fear this kind of commitment because it feels limiting. They believe keeping many options open will make them freer. But true freedom often comes from deep dedication. When you commit to developing a skill, a vision, or a meaningful path, you gain strength that scattered individuals never experience. During my own development, I structured my days around clear priorities. Training, learning, reflecting. These were not random activities. They were deliberate investments in growth. Over time, this consistency built momentum. Momentum built confidence. And confidence reduced my vulnerability to external influence. When you know where you are going, it becomes harder for others to push you in directions that do not serve you. There is also a deeper psychological transformation that happens through focused effort. You begin to trust yourself. Each time you complete a difficult task without quitting, your self-respect increases. Each time you resist the temptation of distraction and stay committed, your mental endurance strengthens. This endurance becomes a shield. People who try to manipulate you will find less leverage because you are no longer driven by impulse or uncertainty. Your actions are guided by intention. However, focused effort does not mean rigid obsession. It means intelligent dedication. You remain aware of your surroundings, but you are not easily pulled away from what matters. You learn to rest without losing direction. You learn to adapt without losing commitment. This balance is essential because life will always present unexpected challenges. Focus gives you stability in the middle of change. Understand this clearly. Scattered men are easy to control because they do not control themselves. They react to every distraction, every fear, every opinion. They spend their energy without building real strength. But a person who cultivates concentration becomes independent. Their mind is sharp. Their purpose is clear. Their movement is intentional. So train your focus like a warrior trains his body. Protect your attention as if it were your most valuable possession, because it is. Choose your path wisely. Commit to it fully and allow your effort to become a powerful force. When your energy moves in one direction with clarity and discipline, control from outside forces fades. You stop drifting. You start leading your own life. 7. The principle of inner stillness. Master the art of silence. In a world that constantly demands noise, speed, and reaction, inner stillness becomes one of the rarest and most powerful skills a human being can develop. Many people believe strength is loud. They believe power is shown through constant movement, constant talking, constant proving. But through years of training, fighting, teaching, and observing life deeply, I discovered something very different. The greatest power is often quiet. The strongest mind is often calm. And the most dangerous individual is the one who has learned to master silence within himself. Inner stillness is not the absence of activity. It is the presence of awareness. It is the ability to remain centered even when the world around you is chaotic. When I stood before an opponent, the real battle was never just physical. It was psychological. Fear tried to enter the mind. Doubt tried to cloud perception. Excitement tried to disturb timing. If I allowed these internal movements to take control, my body would follow them blindly. But when I learned to return to stillness, to a quiet, grounded state of mind, everything became clear. My reactions slowed down, but my responses became sharper. I could see opportunities that panic would have hidden from me. Most people today live in a constant state of mental turbulence. They wake up and immediately fill their minds with information, comparison, worries, and expectations. Their thoughts never rest. Their emotions swing from excitement to frustration to anxiety within minutes. In such a state, they become easy to influence. Anyone who understands their instability can guide their behavior. A simple criticism can disturb them. A small failure can discourage them. A moment of praise can make them dependent. This is how control happens, not through force, but through inner imbalance. Silence, when practiced consciously, becomes a form of protection. When you stop reacting to every stimulus, you begin to conserve energy. When you stop speaking unnecessarily, you start observing more deeply. I often notice that people revealed their intentions through their own words. The more they talked, the more they exposed their fears, their insecurities, and their strategies. By remaining silent and attentive, I gained understanding without effort. Silence sharpened perception. It allowed me to respond with precision instead of impulse. Inner stillness also builds emotional independence. When you learn to sit with your thoughts without immediately trying to escape them, you begin to understand yourself. You recognize patterns in your reactions. You notice how certain memories influence your decisions. You see how expectations create tension. This awareness is transformative. Instead of being pushed around by emotions, you begin to guide them. Calmness becomes your natural state rather than a rare achievement. During intense training periods, I often practice stillness deliberately. After exhausting physical sessions, I would sit quietly and focus on my breathing. I observed the sensations in my body and the movement of my mind. At first, restlessness appeared. Thoughts demanded attention. But with time, a deeper quiet emerged. In that quiet, creativity increased, clarity improved, even physical recovery became more efficient. This showed me that stillness is not passive, it is deeply active on an internal level. Many people fear silence because it forces them to confront themselves. Noise becomes a distraction from unresolved feelings. Constant activity becomes a way to avoid reflection. But growth begins when you stop running. When you allow stillness to enter your life, you create space for insight. You begin to question habits that once felt automatic. You discover strengths that were hidden beneath mental clutter. Silence becomes a teacher. There is also a social dimension to inner stillness. A calm presence influences others without effort. When you remain composed in stressful situations, people begin to trust your stability. Your words carry more weight because they are not wasted. Your actions become more deliberate because they are not driven by emotional storms. This quiet confidence reduces the need to prove yourself. You no longer chase validation because your sense of worth comes from within. However, mastering stillness does not mean withdrawing from life. It means engaging with life from a grounded center. You still act, speak, and pursue goals, but your actions come from clarity rather than chaos. You listen more carefully. You respond more wisely. You conserve energy that others lose through unnecessary reaction. Over time, this disciplined calm becomes a powerful advantage in every area: relationships, career, creativity, and personal growth. Inner stillness also strengthens resilience. When challenges appear, you do not collapse immediately because your mind has learned to remain steady. You can feel pain without being consumed by it. You can face uncertainty without losing direction. This stability makes manipulation difficult. People cannot easily push you into decisions you will regret because you do not operate from panic or pressure. You operate from awareness. Remember that silence is not emptiness. It is space. It is the ground from which intelligent action emerges. Just as a skilled fighter does not waste movement, a disciplined mind does not waste thought. Every moment of stillness you cultivate becomes an investment in freedom. The more you practice it, the less external noise controls your internal state. To begin developing inner stillness, start with small moments. Spend time each day without distractions. Observe your breathing. Notice your thoughts without judging them. Gradually increase your tolerance for quiet. You will discover that what once felt uncomfortable becomes peaceful. What once felt slow becomes powerful. This is the transformation that changes the way you live. When you master the art of silence, you gain something rare: the ability to remain yourself in any environment. You stop being a product of circumstances. You become a creator of responses. Others may shout, rush, and react, but you move with calm precision. This calmness is not weakness. It is control. It is strength that does not need to announce itself. In the end, the person who governs his inner world cannot be easily governed by the outer world. Stillness gives you perspective. Silence gives you power. Awareness gives you freedom. Train your mind to return to quietness again and again. From that quietness, act with purpose. From that silence, shape your destiny. 8. The principle of mental independence: think for yourself or be programmed by others. There is a silent battle happening in every human life, and most people are not even aware that it exists. It is not a battle of fists or physical strength. It is a battle for the ownership of your mind. From the moment you are born, the world begins shaping your thinking. Family traditions, social expectations, education systems, media influences, and the opinions of people around you slowly build an invisible framework inside your head. This framework tells you what is acceptable, what is dangerous, what is possible, and what is not. If you never question it, you begin to live a life that feels normal but is not truly yours. Mental independence is one of the greatest forms of power a person can develop. It is the ability to observe the world without blindly absorbing its limitations. It is the courage to ask whether the beliefs guiding your actions are based on truth or simply on repetition. Many people think they are making free choices, but in reality, they are following scripts written by others. They pursue careers they never truly wanted, adopt fears they never examined, and limit their dreams because they were told certain paths were unrealistic. During my own journey, I faced constant pressure to conform. Traditional martial arts communities expected loyalty to established styles. Society had clear ideas about how a fighter should behave, how an Asian man should present himself, and how success should be measured. If I had accepted these definitions without reflection, I would have remained ordinary. Instead, I chose to think independently. I studied different disciplines, questioned rigid rules, and created my own approach based on effectiveness rather than tradition. This was not an act of rebellion for the sake of ego. It was a necessary step toward authenticity. Thinking for yourself does not mean rejecting everything you are taught. It means developing the awareness to evaluate ideas critically. It means recognizing that knowledge evolves, and what worked in one era may not serve another. A mentally independent person listens carefully, learns respectfully, and then decides consciously. They are not easily impressed by popularity or intimidated by authority. Their confidence comes from understanding, not from imitation. One of the greatest dangers in life is mental laziness. It is comfortable to accept ready-made answers. It is easy to follow trends, repeat slogans, and agree with the majority. But comfort can become a cage. When you stop questioning, you stop growing. Your mind becomes predictable. Others can influence your behavior simply by controlling the information you receive or the fears you believe. This is how manipulation operates on a large scale, not through force, but through unexamined assumptions. Mental independence requires discipline. It asks you to observe your own thoughts as carefully as you observe the world. Why do you react strongly to certain situations? Why do some opportunities excite you while others frighten you? Which beliefs genuinely support your growth, and which ones hold you back? These reflections are not always pleasant, but they are essential. Self-awareness breaks automatic patterns. It allows you to redesign your thinking instead of being driven by it. In martial arts, I often reminded students that copying techniques without understanding their purpose leads to stagnation. The same principle applies to life. If you imitate success without discovering your own strengths, you build a fragile identity. The moment circumstances change, uncertainty returns. But when you develop independent thinking, you become adaptable. You can create new strategies when old ones fail. You can redefine success on your own terms. Another important aspect of mental independence is emotional responsibility. Many people blame external forces for their unhappiness. They say society limited them, family discouraged them, or opportunities were unfair. While external challenges are real, surrendering your inner authority only deepens the problem. A mentally independent person acknowledges obstacles but does not allow them to dictate destiny. They focus on what can be controlled effort, attitude, learning, persistence. This mindset transforms frustration into motivation. The modern world presents unique challenges to independent thinking. Information is abundant, but clarity is rare. Opinions spread faster than wisdom. Social comparison creates pressure to fit into predefined molds. To remain mentally free, you must filter what you consume. Not every voice deserves space in your mind. Choose sources that encourage growth, not fear. Choose ideas that expand your perspective, not shrink your confidence. Practicing mental independence also improves decision-making. When you rely solely on external validation, you hesitate constantly. You wait for approval before acting. This delay weakens momentum. But when you trust your own reasoning, you move forward with conviction. Even mistakes become valuable because they teach you directly. Experience becomes your teacher instead of distant theories. During intense training periods, I often spent time alone reflecting on my progress. I analyzed what worked and what failed. I adjusted methods accordingly. This personal experimentation strengthened my confidence because results came from direct understanding, not blind faith. Over time, I realized that true mastery in any field requires this internal dialogue. Without it, progress remains superficial. Mental independence does not isolate you from others. On the contrary, it allows healthier relationships. When you think clearly, you respect differences without losing yourself. You collaborate without surrendering your identity. You listen openly but decide consciously. This balance creates mutual respect rather than hidden resentment. There is also a deeper philosophical dimension to this principle. To think independently is to live consciously. It is to recognize that life is not a fixed script, but a dynamic process. Each moment offers choices. Each challenge offers lessons. When you stop functioning on autopilot, you begin to experience life with intensity and purpose. Ordinary actions become meaningful because they are guided by awareness. Remember that mental independence develops gradually. It begins with small acts of courage, questioning a limiting belief, trying a new approach, expressing an honest opinion. Over time, these actions reshape your identity. You move from passive acceptance to active creation. You stop waiting for permission to live fully. Ultimately, the person who controls your thinking controls your life. But when you take responsibility for your mind, you reclaim your power. You become less predictable, less influenceable, and more resilient. Challenges remain, but they no longer define you. You define how to respond. Think for yourself. Observe deeply. Learn continuously. Refine your beliefs through experience. This is how you build mental independence. And when your mind becomes truly your own, the world may still try to shape you, but it will never be able to program you. 9. The principle of controlled energy: direct your fire or it will burn you. Every human being carries energy inside them. It appears as ambition, anger, passion, fear, desire, excitement, and determination. This energy is not your enemy. In fact, it is the very force that allows you to act, to create, to defend yourself, and to pursue your goals. But there is a truth that many people fail to understand. Energy without control becomes destruction. When your inner fire has no direction, it does not make you powerful. It makes you dangerous to yourself. In my early years, I experienced this reality intensely. I had speed, strength, and a fierce will to prove myself. But I also had impatience and emotional volatility. When anger rose, my movements became aggressive but careless. When ego entered, my judgment became clouded. I realized that raw intensity could win a moment but lose the bigger battle. Real mastery required not only generating energy, but also guiding it with intelligence. Controlled energy is the ability to feel strongly without acting blindly. It is the discipline to transform emotional impulses into purposeful movement. Many people either suppress their feelings completely or allow them to explode uncontrollably. Both extremes create weakness. Suppression creates internal tension that eventually breaks focus. Explosion creates chaos that destroys opportunities. The balanced path is conscious direction, feeling deeply, but choosing wisely how that feeling is expressed. In combat training, I learned to observe how tension affected performance. When muscles tightened excessively due to fear or anger, speed decreased. When breathing became shallow due to anxiety, endurance dropped. When the mind became obsessed with winning at all costs, strategic thinking disappeared. Through continuous practice, I trained myself to release unnecessary tension and channel intensity into precise action. Instead of letting energy scatter, I allowed it to flow in one clear line toward the objective. Life outside the training hall presents similar challenges. Situations will provoke you. People will test your patience. Circumstances will ignite frustration. If you react impulsively, you surrender control. Others can manipulate your emotions to influence your decisions. They can push you toward arguments, distractions, or self-doubt. But when you develop the habit of directing your inner fire consciously, manipulation becomes difficult. Your responses become intentional rather than automatic. Controlled energy also strengthens perseverance. When your motivation is guided rather than chaotic, you can sustain effort over long periods. Many individuals start projects with enthusiasm but abandon them when excitement fades. They rely on emotional highs instead of disciplined consistency. I discovered that true progress depends on maintaining steady intensity. Some days require explosive action. Other days require quiet endurance. Learning to regulate your energy allows you to continue moving forward regardless of mood.
Another important aspect of this principle is awareness of external influences. Modern environments are designed to capture attention and provoke reaction.
News, competition, social pressure, and comparison constantly stimulate emotional responses. If you allow every stimulus to dictate your state, your energy becomes fragmented. You feel busy but achieve little. A controlled mind filters these influences. It chooses what deserves emotional investment and what should be ignored. In my own routine, I practiced exercises that combined physical movement with mental focus. Shadowboxing, meditation, visualization, and breathing techniques helped me align body and mind. These practices were not rituals for show. They were tools for mastery. By observing how energy moved within me, I learned when to accelerate and when to relax. This awareness improved not only fighting ability, but also decision-making in everyday life. There is also a deeper lesson hidden within controlled energy. Passion is essential for meaningful achievement. Without passion, effort becomes mechanical, but passion alone is not enough. It must be refined into purposeful action. Think of fire in nature. When contained within a furnace, it generates power and warmth. When left uncontrolled in a forest, it destroys everything in its path.
Your emotions function in the same way. Directed passion builds skill, relationships, and vision. Undirected passion creates conflict, regret, and exhaustion.
Many people believe that being calm means lacking intensity. This is a misunderstanding. Calmness is not the absence of energy, it is the mastery of energy. A calm individual can act with explosive force when required because they have not wasted strength on unnecessary reactions. They conserve inner resources. This conservation creates confidence. When you know you can access power without losing control, fear diminishes. Controlled energy also improves communication and leadership. When you speak from a centered state rather than emotional turbulence, your words carry clarity. Others feel your stability and respond with respect. When you act decisively without aggression, you influence situations constructively. Over time, this balanced presence attracts opportunities. People trust those who manage their intensity wisely.
Developing this principle requires continuous practice. Begin by observing moments when your energy becomes excessive or depleted. Notice how certain thoughts increase tension.
Notice how certain environments drain motivation. Then experiment with adjustments. Slow your breathing during stress. Take deliberate pauses before responding to provocation.
Channel frustration into physical exercise or focused work. These small habits gradually build control.
Remember that controlled energy is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming intentional. You still feel excitement, anger, joy, and determination. But these feelings become tools rather than masters. You choose when to accelerate and when to remain still. You decide how much energy a situation deserves. This choice is the foundation of freedom. In the end, every person carries a fire. Some let it burn wildly until it consumes their potential. Others learn to guide it and transform it into creative force. The difference lies in awareness and discipline. Train yourself to direct your inner energy with precision. Let passion fuel your journey, but let wisdom steer the path. When your fire moves under your command, obstacles lose their intimidation. You become resilient, purposeful, and difficult to control. Direct your fire, or it will direct you. 10. The principle of fearless awareness: see clearly, and no one can intimidate you. There is a powerful shift that happens in a person's life when they begin to see reality clearly instead of reacting to imagined fears. Most people are not controlled by actual danger. They are controlled by the stories their minds create about danger. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of losing status, fear of uncertainty. These invisible forces shape decisions long before any real threat appears. When fear governs perception, intimidation becomes easy. Others do not need physical strength to influence you. They only need to trigger your imagination. In my own journey, I encountered fear in many forms. There was the fear of physical harm during intense training and real combat. There was the fear of public criticism when I chose unconventional methods. There was the fear of being misunderstood while trying to express new ideas. But I learned something crucial. Fear loses power when you observe it directly. The moment you stop running from it and start studying it, it begins to transform. Fearless awareness does not mean the absence of fear. It means the ability to face fear without distortion. When you see a situation as it truly is, not worse, not more dramatic, your mind regains stability. In combat, exaggerated fear leads to hesitation. Hesitation creates openings. A calm perception allows faster, more accurate responses. I trained myself to breathe steadily under pressure, to focus on the present moment rather than on imagined outcomes. This clarity made opponents' intimidation tactics ineffective. In everyday life, intimidation often appears through social pressure. People may question your decisions, doubt your abilities, or attempt to define your limits. If you internalize their opinions without reflection, your confidence weakens. You begin to avoid risks, silence your ideas, and shrink your ambitions. Fearless awareness requires stepping back and examining whether these external judgments are based on truth or projection. Many critics speak from their own insecurities. Recognizing this reduces their influence over your path. Another important aspect of this principle is understanding uncertainty. The future is never guaranteed. Attempting to control every outcome creates anxiety and rigidity. Instead, fearless awareness invites flexibility. You prepare thoroughly, act with intention, and accept that not everything will unfold according to plan. This mindset frees energy that would otherwise be wasted on worry. It allows creativity to emerge because you are not paralyzed by the need for perfection. During training, I often simulated challenging scenarios to strengthen psychological resilience. Sparring with stronger partners, practicing in unfamiliar environments, or performing under observation forced me to confront discomfort. These experiences were not about proving toughness. They were about expanding awareness. Each challenge revealed new layers of fear and new opportunities to respond with calm intelligence. Over time, fear became a signal for growth rather than a command to retreat. Fearless awareness also enhances decision-making. When emotions are balanced by observation, choices become more strategic. You learn to evaluate risks realistically. You distinguish between temporary discomfort and genuine danger. This clarity builds trust in your own judgment. Others may attempt to pressure you into hurried decisions, but you remain steady. You ask questions. You gather information. You act only when understanding is sufficient. There is also a relational dimension to this principle. People respect those who carry quiet confidence. When you speak without defensiveness and listen without insecurity, communication improves. Conflicts become easier to resolve because intimidation loses its grip. You no longer react impulsively to protect ego. Instead, you respond thoughtfully to protect progress. This emotional maturity creates stronger connections and healthier boundaries. Modern life presents constant stimuli that amplify fear, rapid news cycles, comparison on social platforms, competition for recognition. Without awareness, these influences can distort perception. You may begin to feel inadequate or threatened even in safe circumstances. Practicing mental stillness and critical thinking helps counterbalance this effect. You learn to filter information, prioritize meaningful challenges, and ignore noise designed to provoke reaction. Fearless awareness also nurtures creativity. When you are not obsessed with avoiding mistakes, you become willing to experiment. Innovation requires the courage to fail occasionally. By reframing setbacks as feedback rather than defeat, you maintain momentum. This resilience is essential for long-term achievement. Those who fear judgment excessively often abandon promising paths too soon. In my own career,
Taking risks was unavoidable. Introducing new training philosophies, blending disciplines, and performing on global stages involved uncertainty. But I chose to focus on preparation and authenticity rather than on hypothetical criticism. This approach did not eliminate obstacles, but it strengthened my ability to navigate them. Awareness replaced anxiety. Action replaced hesitation. Developing fearless awareness is an ongoing practice. Begin by observing your reactions in small situations. Notice when fear exaggerates consequences. Challenge assumptions gently. Build confidence through consistent effort. Surround yourself with environments that encourage growth instead of constant comparison. Over time, perception becomes sharper. Intimidation fades because you recognize its psychological mechanisms. Ultimately, the person who sees clearly cannot be easily dominated. They understand that fear is often a mental construction shaped by past experiences and external expectations. By meeting fear with curiosity and discipline, they transform it into a source of strength. Their presence becomes grounded. Their decisions become deliberate. Their path becomes self-directed. See reality as it is. Prepare with sincerity. Act with courage. When awareness replaces illusion, intimidation loses its power. 11. The principle of relentless self-refinement: grow faster than your limitations. One of the greatest mistakes a person can make is believing that reaching a certain level of success means the journey is complete. Many individuals train hard until they become competent, then slowly begin to relax. They protect their reputation instead of challenging their weaknesses. They repeat what already works instead of exploring what could work better. This is the moment growth begins to die. Real mastery does not come from reaching a peak. It comes from refusing to stop climbing. In my own life, I understood that talent is only the starting point. Natural ability may open doors, but disciplined refinement determines how far you can walk through them. Every day I asked myself a simple but powerful question: where am I still limited? Sometimes the answer was physical: lack of endurance, lack of flexibility, lack of speed in certain movements. Sometimes the limitation was mental impatience, overconfidence, distraction, or fear of failure. Identifying these gaps was uncomfortable, but ignoring them would have been far more dangerous. Relentless self-refinement means developing the courage to see yourself honestly. Many people prefer comfort over truth. They surround themselves with praise, avoid criticism, and repeat routines that feel safe. This creates the illusion of progress, while real development slows down. A person who stops refining themselves becomes predictable. Predictability invites control. When others know exactly how you think, how you react, and what you can or cannot do, they gain influence over your direction. To refine yourself continuously, you must cultivate the mindset of a student, regardless of how experienced you become. During training, I never allowed my past achievements to become an excuse for complacency. If a technique worked yesterday, I still examined whether it could be improved today. If a strategy brought victory, I still questioned its weaknesses. This constant inquiry transformed practice into evolution. Instead of defending my identity, I focused on expanding it. There is also a deeper psychological transformation that occurs through relentless refinement. Each time you confront a limitation and work to overcome it, your confidence becomes more authentic. It is no longer based on image or comparison. It is based on evidence, the proof that you can change, adapt, and improve. This type of confidence is difficult to shake because it is rooted in experience rather than opinion. Self-refinement requires structured effort. Random improvement rarely produces lasting results. I designed training routines that challenge different aspects of performance: speed drills, strength conditioning, flexibility work, mental visualization, philosophical study. By integrating multiple dimensions of growth, I ensured that development remained balanced. A strong body without a disciplined mind creates instability. A sharp mind without physical resilience creates hesitation. Harmony between these elements generates true capability. Modern life often encourages superficial achievement. Quick success, instant recognition, and short-term rewards dominate attention. While these outcomes can be motivating, they may distract you from deeper refinement.
When your focus shifts from learning to proving, you become vulnerable. You fear mistakes because they threaten your image. This fear slows experimentation and innovation. Relentless self-refinement, however, welcomes mistakes as teachers. It recognizes that every failure contains information needed for progress. Another important aspect of this principle is adaptability. The world changes continuously. Techniques that were effective in one context may lose relevance in another. By committing to lifelong refinement, you remain prepared for evolving challenges. You develop flexibility in thinking and action. Instead of resisting change, you use it as an opportunity to upgrade your skills. This proactive mindset reduces anxiety because you trust your ability to learn quickly. Self-refinement also influences relationships. When you strive to become better, you inspire others to pursue growth as well. Conversations become more meaningful because they revolve around development rather than complaint. Conflicts become learning opportunities rather than ego battles. Over time, this environment of mutual improvement strengthens cooperation and respect. There is, however, a balance to maintain. Relentless refinement does not mean harsh self-criticism. It means disciplined compassion toward yourself. You acknowledge imperfections without losing self-respect. You celebrate progress without becoming complacent. This balance sustains motivation. Growth becomes a natural rhythm rather than a forced obligation. During intense periods of preparation, I often visualized future challenges to guide refinement. I imagined faster opponents, unpredictable situations, unfamiliar environments. This mental rehearsal revealed areas needing improvement before real confrontation occurred. By anticipating difficulty, I reduced surprise and increased readiness. This proactive refinement created psychological advantage. Developing this principle in daily life begins with reflection. At the end of each day, review your actions. What did you learn? Where did you hesitate? Which habits strengthened you? And which weakened you? Then design small adjustments for the next day. Consistency in these micro improvements accumulates into significant transformation over time. Remember that refinement is not limited to professional goals. It applies to communication, emotional regulation, creativity, and personal values. As you evolve internally, your external achievements gain depth. You stop chasing validation and start pursuing mastery. Others may attempt to define your limits, but continuous self-development expands those limits before they solidify. Ultimately, relentless self-refinement is a declaration of independence. It is the refusal to remain static in a dynamic world. It is the commitment to shaping your destiny through conscious effort. When you grow faster than your limitations, control from outside forces weakens. You become resilient, adaptable, and self-directed. Never assume you have arrived. Continue refining, continue learning, continue transforming. 12. The principle of unshakable self-trust. When you trust yourself, no one can lead you blindly. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that the greatest uncertainty is not in the world around them, but in the relationship they have with themselves. Many people move through life constantly seeking reassurance. They want someone to confirm their choices, validate their direction, and guarantee their success. While guidance and support can be valuable, excessive dependence on external approval slowly weakens inner authority. When you do not trust your own judgment, you become vulnerable to influence. Others begin to decide your pace, your priorities, and even your sense of worth. In my own journey, I understood early that self-trust is not something you are given. It is something you build through disciplined experience. There were moments when I had to make decisions that others did not understand. Choosing unconventional training methods, blending martial arts philosophies, and presenting new ideas to audiences who preferred tradition required courage. At times, doubt appeared not only from outside voices, but also from within. But I realized that if I hesitated every time uncertainty arose, I would never move forward. Trusting myself did not mean believing I would always be right. It meant believing I could learn, adjust, and continue regardless of temporary mistakes. Unshakable self-trust develops when your actions align consistently with your intentions. Each time you commit to a goal and follow through, you strengthen the bond with yourself. Each time you confront fear instead of avoiding it, you reinforce confidence. Over time, this internal reliability becomes a powerful foundation.
You no longer need constant encouragement because your past efforts provide evidence of resilience. This evidence is far more convincing than praise from others.
Many people struggle with self-trust because they measure their value through comparison. They observe the achievements, opinions, and expectations of those around them and assume they must imitate similar paths to succeed. While learning from others is beneficial, blind imitation erodes individuality.
Your strengths, experiences, and aspirations are unique. Building trust requires acknowledging this uniqueness. It involves listening to your inner signals, curiosity, discomfort, excitement, and using them as guides rather than suppressing them to fit external molds.
During training, I often emphasize the importance of personal experimentation. Techniques that worked for one practitioner might not suit another. Body structure, temperament, and learning style influence performance. By encouraging students to adapt principles rather than copy movements mechanically, I aim to cultivate self-trust. When individuals discovered solutions through their own observation, their confidence grew organically. They were no longer dependent on constant instruction. There is also a deep emotional component to this principle. Fear of judgment can prevent people from trusting their instincts. They worry about making mistakes in public or disappointing influential figures. This anxiety leads to hesitation. Hesitation weakens momentum. To overcome this pattern, you must accept that imperfection is part of growth. Self-trust does not require flawless execution. It requires the willingness to take responsibility for outcomes and to refine your approach continuously.
Modern environments often amplify insecurity by presenting curated images of success. Social comparison can create the illusion that everyone else is progressing faster or more confidently.
In such conditions, strengthening self-trust becomes even more essential. Limit unnecessary comparison. Focus on measurable progress within your own context. Celebrate improvements that others may not notice. These practices reinforce inner validation. Another dimension of unshakable self-trust is decision-making under pressure. Life rarely provides complete information. Waiting for certainty can result in missed opportunities. When you trust your preparation and reasoning, you can act decisively even amid ambiguity. This decisiveness reduces stress because you are no longer trapped in endless analysis. You move forward, observe results, and adjust accordingly. Self-trust also enhances relationships. When you know your values clearly, you set healthier boundaries. You communicate needs without aggression and listen without losing identity. Others sense this stability and respond with respect. Dependence decreases, cooperation improves. Instead of seeking constant reassurance, you contribute confidently. Developing this principle involves consistent reflection. After each significant experience, review what you learned. Identify moments when intuition guided you correctly and moments when fear distorted perception. This honest evaluation transforms experiences into wisdom. Over time, patterns become visible. You understand how you respond to challenge, success, and uncertainty. This understanding strengthens trust further. Remember that self-trust is dynamic. It evolves as you grow. New challenges may temporarily shake confidence, but they also provide opportunities to reinforce it. By approaching obstacles with curiosity rather than avoidance, you expand your capacity. Each successful adaptation becomes proof that you can rely on yourself. Ultimately, unshakable self-trust is a form of freedom. When your decisions are guided by awareness rather than dependency, external pressure loses influence. You still consider advice, but you are not controlled by it. You collaborate without surrendering direction. You pursue goals with conviction because you believe in your ability to navigate difficulty. Trust yourself enough to act. Trust yourself enough to learn. Trust yourself enough to continue when results are uncertain. When this trust becomes rooted deeply within you, manipulation fades. You walk your path with clarity, resilience, and purpose.
13. The principle of strategic detachment: care deeply, but never lose yourself.
One of the most misunderstood ideas in personal mastery is detachment. Many people hear this word and immediately think it means becoming cold, distant, or emotionally disconnected from life.
They imagine a person who no longer feels joy, passion, or love. But true detachment is not emotional numbness. It is emotional intelligence.
It is the ability to care deeply about your goals, relationships, and purpose while still maintaining control over your inner state. When you master detachment, you stop allowing external situations to dictate your identity. You participate fully in life without becoming enslaved by its unpredictable outcomes.
In my own experiences, I realized that attachment often creates unnecessary suffering. Fighters who became obsessed with winning lost their clarity. They feared defeat so intensely that their movements became tense and their strategies rigid. In contrast, those who remained focused on performance rather than on outcome were able to act freely.
They trusted their preparation. They responded to the moment. This difference in mindset often determined the result long before the first exchange of techniques. Strategic detachment allows you to maintain perspective. It reminds you that success and failure are temporary states, not permanent definitions of who you are. When you attach your entire sense of worth to a single event or opinion, you become vulnerable. A minor setback can feel like a personal collapse. A moment of praise can inflate ego and reduce motivation. Detachment creates balance. You learn to celebrate progress without becoming complacent. You learn to face challenges without losing confidence. This principle also applies strongly to relationships. Caring for others is natural and meaningful, but losing yourself in the process leads to instability. Many people compromise their values to gain approval or avoid conflict. They suppress honest expression to maintain harmony. Over time, this self-neglect creates resentment and confusion. Strategic detachment encourages you to remain compassionate while still honoring your own direction. You listen with empathy, but you decide with clarity. You support others without sacrificing your growth. During intense training periods, I practiced detachment from immediate results. Improvement in martial arts does not happen overnight. There were days when progress felt invisible, techniques failed repeatedly. Fatigue reduced performance. In such moments, attachment to quick success would have caused frustration and discouragement. Instead, I focused on consistent effort. I reminded myself that mastery is built through patience. Detachment from short-term outcomes preserved motivation and allowed long-term development. Another dimension of this principle is freedom from excessive comparison.
Modern life exposes you to constant examples of achievement. While inspiration can be beneficial, comparison can distort perception.
When you measure your journey against others continuously, you lose awareness of your unique pace and potential. Strategic detachment means recognizing that each path unfolds differently. You can learn from others without allowing their timelines to control your emotional state. Detachment also enhances decision-making. Emotional overinvestment often leads to impulsive choices. For example, clinging to a failing strategy because you fear admitting a mistake prolongs difficulty. Detachment provides the mental space needed to evaluate situations objectively. You become willing to change course when evidence demands it. This flexibility increases resilience because you are not trapped by pride or fear. In combat scenarios, I learned to detach from the opponent's attempts to provoke reaction. Some fighters used aggressive gestures or verbal intimidation to disrupt focus. If I allowed these tactics to trigger emotional responses, my timing suffered. By remaining centered and observing without judgment, I neutralized their psychological advantage. Detachment transformed potential distractions into opportunities for clarity. There is also a creative aspect to this principle. When you are not overly attached to rigid plans, innovation becomes easier. You can experiment with new approaches because failure no longer threatens your identity. This openness encourages exploration. Many breakthroughs occur when individuals release preconceived expectations and allow fresh insights to emerge. Detachment thus becomes a catalyst for growth rather than a barrier. However, practicing detachment does not mean withdrawing from responsibility. It means engaging with intention. You still work hard, set goals, and invest energy in meaningful pursuits. The difference is that you no longer allow external validation to define your value. You maintain internal stability regardless of praise or criticism. This stability strengthens perseverance, because motivation comes from purpose, not from fluctuating approval. Developing strategic detachment requires regular reflection. Notice moments when emotions intensify beyond usefulness. Observe how attachment to specific outcomes influences behavior. Practice small acts of release, letting go of the need to control every detail, accepting uncertainty, and trusting the process of growth. Over time, these habits cultivate inner balance. Ultimately, detachment is a form of self-respect. It acknowledges that your worth is not dependent on temporary circumstances. By caring deeply yet remaining centered, you preserve energy for meaningful action. Challenges become lessons rather than threats. Success becomes a milestone rather than a destination. When this mindset becomes natural, manipulation loses its grip because you are no longer driven by fear of loss or desire for constant validation. Care deeply, act wisely, release what you cannot control. Through strategic detachment, you move through life with strength, clarity, and freedom.